Welcome to Wiley Manager, your place for just-in-time management advice on the web at wileymanager.com. Today's podcast, your introduction to the Wiley Manager Leadership Bootcamp. All right, welcome to the Wiley Manager Leadership Bootcamp podcast.
Yeah, what do you know?
Something a little bit different for us today. We're going to talk about one of the programs that Wiley Manager offers through its website and through other mediums, the Leadership Bootcamp. So, Bob, why don't you run us through a bit of an agenda in terms of how we're going to share this information with folks?
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll tell. There's two types of people that will be listening to this podcast. One are people that are getting started in the boot camp, and this is just an introduction to them as to what to expect as we move our way through this program. The other one is that anybody can download this podcast, so it might be for people that are considering taking it, so you'll learn a little bit about what we do as we go along. So to that end, we're going to talk about why do we want to do the Wiley Manager Leadership Bootcamp? Why would I bother?
Seems like a key question.
Yeah, it kind of does, right? So we're going to talk about why you want to do this, what it's all about, who should be participating in this, and who would be interested in doing some of them. We're going to get into a little bit more of the detail about how it works and what we cover.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about why people should bother. Why do we think this is a good idea for folks to consider?
Well, we put the tagline under the boot camp part about improve process, improve results, build your team, and inspire your people. So it's a bit of a broad-reaching theme, but the reality is, as we've talked about many times before on our regular podcast, Jed, is that inspired leadership is the ingredient that makes business go. It's what separates truly great organizations from the not great organizations, and they're of all the companies that I've ever worked for, as an employee or as a consultant, there's two that come to mind to me. There's lots of good organizations out there, but there's two that come to mind to me as two what I would consider to be exceptionally well-run businesses, which, just being on the inside of those businesses with them for a while was truly a humbling experience. Mm-hmm. And they demanded of their people top quality leadership. Right. And they're both industry leaders. These are companies that they have superior productivity compared to their peer groups. They excel at safety. Excellence is not a mistake. Okay, right? So companies that get this right tend to get it all right. They better quality. Their costs are under control. They drive revenues. They dominate their industries. Right? They have people that work there, love working there. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why you want to do this. So even if you're just a small cog in a much larger wheel, I've certainly, where I say there's only two organizations of the hundreds really that I've worked with that I consider to be truly world-class, outstanding organizations, I've seen pockets of excellence inside of good companies. Mm-hmm. Okay? So again, the vast majority of companies out there being what I would call pretty good companies, right? But I've seen true excellence inside some of those companies. And it is almost always attributed to a leader that has taken that department, that business, and his or her people there with them.
Excellent.
So that's why we want to do it.
And that's what we're going to try and help them do, is become that leadership excellence.
That's right.
All right, cool. And there's one other reason that we didn't touch on a whole lot around this employee retention piece of it. I guess you did to a degree, but you focus mostly on productivity, safety, quality, et cetera.
Yep.
But it's the old saying that people leave managers, they don't leave organizations, and being a better leader is going to help you from that aspect as well.
People quit their boss more often than they quit organizations, and employee turnover is extraordinarily expensive.
Yes,
right. Other than the fact that just trying to lead people is the right thing to do. If you're looking for a hard numbers reason, it's expensive. So
right.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully that wasn't too hard. I think most people would agree that that leadership is important, and thereby leadership development is somehow important as well. Let's tell them a little bit what this boot camp is all about.
Right. So one of the things we've come across, Jed, when we've been out there working with clients is that quite often there's all kinds of courses out there that people can take and books they can read and all kinds of other stuff, and sometimes those are actually really good and they actually quite help people. More often than not, and you were you worked in a corporate HR department in a great big Fortune 50 firm that's quite well known, and you said that too when you worked there. Is that quite often what happens? People go out to these courses or whatnot, they come back, they're all inspired, and then nothing changes. Yeah. Right? So the whole thing becomes somewhat academic. Right? So we've tried to move beyond that with the Wiley Manager Leadership Bootcamp in two respects. The first one is This isn't something you do once and then go away. Okay, so this is an ongoing thing that happens over the course of several weeks. So we give you little bits over the course of a longer period of time, with the idea that we try to reinforce things and we try to get feedback from you and try to get you to see how you would apply some of these things. You're talking to your peer group, right? So so it goes beyond training in that way. The second part is it's you have some input as to how the whole thing comes together, right? So it's not necessarily static. So we have a core group of modules, if you like, that we try to suggest, but that can be adjusted based on your situation or that in your organization.
So it's more than just an event. It's not a training event that you go and attend and then have to, hopefully take back to the organization. This goes beyond just a single solitary training event. Right.
And I guess the third thing out of the two differentiators, because I don't know how to count that well, is the third one would be is that the things that we talk about here they're pragmatic how-to stuff. They're instantly applicable, and you can listen to our podcast, or you can spend some time with us personally, or whatever option you take. And the stuff that we're talking about, you can go back and use today, right? So it's not abstract.
Not all theoretical stuff. There's a little bit of that to introduce you to the topics, but then it's about how do you now apply that theory back at the office.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So let's talk a little about who the intended audience is for this particular material.
Right. Okay. So if you're a leader who's taking on a new role, this is a good time for you to recalibrate and take a look take stock of what's going on around you, and this is going to help you with that.
And would it be true, Bob, that it is because it is modular?
Yeah.
If you're taking on a new role, you may have been to other courses or have a certain level of experience. You could select the modules that would be you feel most appropriate and valuable to you at this point in time.
Yeah, you bet. So, and again, it depends on your needs and the organizational needs. But this is a great time for leaders in new roles to take a look at this. Certainly, leaders who have never supervised others before. There's a big difference between being an individual contributor and leading other people, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about regularly is all about that, Jed. But certainly, if you've never led people before, you need to do something to up your game, and it's time to look at that.
Okay, cool. And who else?
People who are new to an organization. Okay, so just if you're new, or leaders who haven't done much development, there's lots of people out there in small and medium-sized businesses where leadership development just isn't something that is on the radar a lot, and perhaps it should be. So for people who haven't done a lot of development, and finally just leaders that want to up their game.
The keeners.
Right? Yeah, these people that want to be better at what they do.
All right, cool. Well, that sounds like it's going to apply to a lot of different folks. I like the fact that it's somewhat modular, and you can choose to participate in those modules that you think are going to be most helpful to yourself. So, explain a bit more about how the modular part of it works and how we deliver some of this material. Okay,
so in a regular leadership development program, there's somebody standing at the front of a classroom, and you're participating in the classroom, and they might mix it up a little bit. Well, we don't really do it that way. So what we've got is we have a variety of media that are available for people that want to take place or take part in this process. So there are written materials. You can go away and read stuff. And again, the written materials we provide is true to the Wiley Manager brand promise. We have a lot of stuff that's in point form and fill in the blanks. Okay, if you want comprehensive treatises as to what you're learning about, go to Harvard Business School Press. They got a ton of really good stuff. And we'll recommend some of that to you if you're really interested in certain areas. But the stuff that we provide to you is stuff that is it's very easy to read, and it's meant to be digested quickly and to be converted into use right away.
We do not write 500-page leader. There's all kinds of other people writing 500-page books on leadership. Not our shtick.
Yeah, no, that's right. But we read those books, Jed, and we try to convert them into what you need to know. So
yes, we do.
We also have podcasts. So for a lot of people, they're commuters, or they just find it a lot easier to listen to you and I talk about certain subjects as opposed to reading themselves. So the written materials are reinforced by podcasts, and we do some of these things. Upon request, with people here, we want to hear more about that. So you and I can throw together a podcast and distribute that to people, which makes it easier for you to listen. Where it is. So there's peer support. So we set up, we've got a forum set up for everybody that's participating in the process, and we've set it up so that it's with every module there's a forum that's attached to that module, so people can talk about either struggles that they're having or how they applied certain tools or just things that they want to share with this community of managers. And that's back at our website. So you've got peer support, and then you've got individualized coaching. So there's a variety of different ways you can take the course. You can just download all the materials and be on your own. You can have access to you or I or one of our associates, either in a group setting where we set up a webinar or a teleconference on a recurring basis. Or we can have what we call virtual coach, which is where Jed or I, or again, one of our associates would meet with you by telephone as you're going through the process. Or finally, what we've traditionally done and what works for some organizations is we embed one of our coaches right in your business. Okay, so if you've got if you're the lone person that's trying to do this on your own, that isn't probably an option for you. But if you're trying to run a number of people in your organization through, that might be the best way for us to do it, is to embed one of our coaches right in your business and work with your people on the specifics of their situation on an ongoing basis over the course of several days or weeks.
Right, and with many of the mixed media delivery methods, you can attack these things at your own pace. It's not like you need to be showing up for the class on next Tuesday. It's self-driven to a degree in many of the different options. They can continue to progress through at whatever pace is comfortable and whatever speed is appropriate given their circumstances.
Right. So we'll try to help you with your discipline around that, and we are going to try to push you through this so it doesn't slide off your radar. But
right.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, you're in the driver's seat on that one. So.
All right, cool. So let's tell them a bit more detail about what kinds of things we covered off. So we got the delivery methods down and hopefully understand that a bit better. But really, what a bit more specifically, what kind of things are we going to cover off in this course? Okay.
There's 4 overarching sections. And what I'm going to suggest here in this introductory podcast are what we consider to be sort of the core modules. So if your organization's into this, it may be slightly different than this depending on what your needs are. But we're going to suggest that there's some core modules in each of 4 broad categories. So the 4 broad categories are, the first one is what we're going to call foundational or price of entry skills. So these are things that every manager sort of has to have. So I'm going to talk in more detail about these. So I'll just quickly tell you what they are at a high level, and then we'll go into them in some detail.
Okay.
The second stage is what we're calling manager basics. So this is how you handle your people. Okay. Mm-hmm. So as a manager, the first one's foundational is managing yourself. The second one is how you manage others. The third part is, again, manager basics, how you manage process and things happening around you. And the fourth part is accelerated leadership. This is really, trying to be that leader where people will follow. So those are the 4 broad categories.
All right, let's get inside each of those 4 in some detail. So the first one was this foundational price of entry skills. What are some of the typical things that we help people through in that section?
Okay, so what we call this is, again, the tagline here is know your situation and proactively manage yourself. Okay, so these are the things that you do more individually. So it's not that you're not interacting with others, but this is mostly about you, this first section. And again, we think you have to have these right before you have to manage yourself well before you can possibly manage others to any level of effectiveness. So the first thing we have you do is we actually have you self-assess your situation. We have you take a look around and figure out, okay, well, what makes the most sense for me in this situation that I'm in? Maybe it's new. So we ask some very specific questions for you to look around and figure out what's going on around you. Mm-hmm. The second part is we ask you to reach out and take a look at, okay, well, who are my stakeholders? And in a lot of cases, people have never actually had to think about, well, stakeholders, but what do you mean? Okay, well, we actually have you list them out. Who are the people that are important? If you're going to be successful in your world, who are the other people out there that you need to be interacting with regularly in order to do that? And how do I manage those people? So stakeholder management.
Right.
Following on from stakeholder management, we talk about upward managing. So how do you manage your boss?
Okay. Your most important stakeholder.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so it's, originally when we wrote it, we had that in as part of the stakeholder management part, and then we decided, wait a second, there's way too much dirt here. We have to actually talk specifically about managing your boss as that important stakeholder.
Yeah.
Okay. We then take an environmental scan. So this isn't a weird Al Gore thing. What this is, it actually is the environment that you are in. Okay, so take a critical look at what's happening around you in your organization, mm-hmm. and how is that going to affect the way in which you're going to manage yourself. Yeah. Time and priority management. So here's another one. Managers almost inevitably have way more demands on their time than they have the ability to get things done. So their ability to properly manage their time and set priorities is critical. So we run you through that. And then the final sort of what we would call core module inside of these foundational skills are decision-making and problem-solving. So this is constantly things that managers face all the time. They're making decisions and they're trying to solve problems, okay? And with just a little bit of process, you can do that much more effectively. So, and a lot of people don't often think about the process around making decisions and problem solving. So we run people through that. So that's the first bucket, if you like, of stuff.
The price of entry types of skills, a lot of self-development and inward looking. In the next section, we talk about those, managing people, if you will, and some of the people skills going to help you as a manager. So also a manager basics, kind of a module, but more outwardly focused on the people that now work for you.
Right. So the idea is those foundational skills are all about you and getting yourself sorted. So now we're dealing with how do we effectively manage others. So we talk about the tagline here is manage people to maximize efficiency. So we will talk about effectiveness too. That's coming. But right now we're talking about how do we effectively maximize efficiency by managing our people. So there's a couple of things here. And for people that have a robust HR department, they may not want to do a whole bunch of this, but a lot of our clients are small and medium-sized businesses. They may have a very limited HR department, if one at all. Interestingly, one of our most downloaded podcasts yet is conducting an interview. Right. So there's lots of people that are put into a position where they're hiring people, but they've never had any training or background as to how you actually run through a recruiting process and how you do this stuff. So these are the type of things that we talk about inside this manager basics people skills area. So effective hiring and onboarding, right? So it's not, you have to get people through the whole hiring process, and then you actually have to integrate them into their organization. That's when employees are most at risk, is usually their first 12 to 18 months on the job, and people don't think about this. Well, they're here. They've been here a week. We got them a phone. We got them a desk. What else do you need?
Right.
All right. So we give you some things to think about here and some tools to more effectively hire and onboard people. We talk here about conflict management. Okay. So anytime you're in a society of more than one, there's going to be conflict. Yeah, no, I know it's hard to believe. It's conflict actually itself is neither good nor bad. It merely exists. How we deal with it can be good or bad. So we need to have some tools by which to deal with that. And we, for those that aren't familiar, Jed, we use the conflict dynamics profile out of Eckerd College. It's a licensed material that we find to be quite effective in helping people through this.
Very good. And there's one other section around here on performance management, even to the point, sadly, of terminating employees.
Right.
We deal with that in this section.
Yeah, so progressive discipline and employee dismissal. So again, if you've got a crackerjack HR department, maybe you don't need a whole lot of advice in this area. You've got local help that'll be really good for you. For everybody else out there, which is many, many of them, this is not a fun part of a manager's job, right? Well, we give you some tools by which we make this unpleasant task at least a little bit easier.
All right, cool. So that's some ideas to some of the things we cover off in the people section of Manager Basics. We also, in the next module, talk a lot more about some of the processes that you need to be able to manage as a leader. So let's help folks understand what some of those aspects are.
Sure. So our tagline here is manage process to maximize efficiency. And again, I'm coming to effectiveness for people that don't like the word efficiency. But there's some certain managerial processes that we need to have a good understanding of that people typically undervalue sometimes. The first one of which is meetings. So, they did a survey a few years ago, and they surveyed, I think, well over 1,000 managers, and the average manager spends 18 hours a week in meetings, which is a considerable chunk of the work week.
Yeah.
And they on average, they assessed that a third of that time was wasted. Yeah. So it's pretty overwhelming. Meetings, bad meetings are systemic in business. And so we work with you on, okay, well, how do we make them to be not such a waste of time? How do we minimize the negative impact of meetings? And how do we actually try to do them so that they're powerful and value-added activities? So
right, what other processes are we going to try and help folks out with?
Well, another one is delegating. So, managers are told all the time, well, you got to delegate. Well, how exactly do you do that? Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's some very simple tools and techniques you can use that will help you identify opportunities for delegation and then get them dispatched quickly and effectively to the right place.
All right. And we also want to talk a little about providing feedback and the processes called performance appraisals, those sort of things we deal with here as well.
Right. So we also talk about feedback as a leadership quality, which I'll talk about in the next section. But this is actually the process around systemic feedback, which often comes in the form of performance appraisals. So again, if you've got a crackerjack HR department, you've already got forms and processes in place to do this. If not, we got the stuff for you.
So this might not be so much the one-on-one type of conversational feedback. This is more process feedback that's driven by the HR calendar and larger organizations. Kind of feedback.
It is in fact both, right? I mean, So again, because I think you have to have a process and a system by which you do this well. right? So we're going to talk about that in this section.
All right, so then we go on to the accelerated leadership modules. This is where we're going to cover off feedback again. So let's walk through some of the other things we cover off in this section.
Okay, so again, just to put it in perspective, so again, we start the program by, again, managing yourself and doing that well. The next part is managing others.
Right.
Okay, and now we're going to move into leadership. So it's sort of like the top of the hierarchy, if you will, right? So, about 15 years ago, Tom Peters said, let's get rid of management. We just need leadership. He went back and said that maybe wasn't such a good idea, that we in fact need both. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with his second statement, right? So that you need both. You need to manage well. You need to certainly manage well if you have any hope of trying to lead people somewhere, but they are different. They are different activities that people need to do well. So this is a part about how do we actually lead people and try to capture discretionary effort and inspire people to perform and do great things. And so that's why the tagline here is provide inspirational leadership to maximize effectiveness. There you go. You were waiting for effectiveness. You got it now. So,
so what kind of things specifically are we going to cover off in this section?
So we're going to talk specifically about different things you can do and different tools you can use around employee engagement and retention. So everybody talks about this because most people have realized that turnover is costly and undesirable, but there's very few organizations that actually put systems and processes and have tools in place by which we actively attempt to engage and retain employees. So we're going to give you some of those tools. Okay, we're going to talk about. So again, this is the second part of the feedback stuff. Is that, and again, there's some overlap in these areas. So, but we're going to talk about coaching. So everybody talks about, well, we've got to be a good coach and everything else, but people say, they don't have the tools to do so. So we have the Wiley Manager coaching model that we roll out for people. We try to give them a good understanding of when you say you're going to do some coaching work with your people, what is it you're trying to get done? And how do I get those things done? So specific tools by which we do this. Likewise with the feedback and one-on-one meetings. So people say, well, you got to have one-on-one meetings, and they end up like all the other bad meetings you have.
Yeah, right? With no focus, no agenda, no outcomes, nothing. They just get together once a week and talk.
So we have the specific dirt that you would use to manage those meetings well. So again, pre-printed agendas and ideas about what you should be trying to do, and again, just a structure by which you can make those things happen well.
Right.
Likewise with employee development and succession planning. Well, employee development, hey, maybe just taking this course as part of your employee development plan for the year. Well, good on you. You need to do more than that. It needs to be systemic, and it needs to be much more real. Okay, so it needs to be how does it fit into our overall business goals? How is it going to bring along the skills that we're trying to encourage in you as a leader, or even just for you as a leader with your employees? What are the things that we're trying to do? So again, we've got tools and structures that we can do to help you move people along in a more sort of programmatic way for employee development and succession planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we also cover off communication skills in this particular module as well.
Yeah, so this is one of these ones, again, where people, they don't necessarily give a lot of thought to the fact that you actually have to have structures and process in place by which we communicate with people, right? So, well, I'm just going to go out there and talk to my people. Good on you, but you need to do a little bit more than that. So this is specifically around how that would work.
And probably, I know it's something that a lot of new leaders always seem to want to ask for help with, is how do I hold people accountable, which they think they're not doing what I want them to do. How do I hold them accountable? Yeah,
and there's again some things that we can do. We talk about various tools. So this is fill in the blank forms that we have, Jed, and also techniques for how we do that in a way that's going to be meaningful for people. So we talk specifically about setting expectations and holding people accountable.
All right, cool. So there's a lot of information in here. Again, that you can cover off in multiple, mediums and different kind of delivery techniques through the Wiley Manager partnership. Let's tell them a little bit about how they can get started.
Okay. Well, again, there's two types of people listening to this podcast. So there's some people that they are started. This is, in fact, their introductory. This is the introductory module, just to give them an idea of what to expect when they're on their way through. So you folks, you're good to go. For other folks that are just listening in and want to know, if you go back to the Wiley Manager website, you enter your information. Again, most of the stuff is web enabled. If you pick just to pull our podcast and our information on the website, you can have those instantly. Okay, so you fill out your information, it gets emailed out to you instantly. So it's all done by autoresponder. It's done. If you choose one of the other options, so if you want individual attention from Jed and I or one of our associates, then then there's always going to be scheduling issues. But we'll give you the dirt right away. We'll give you all the stuff right away. But we need to figure out. But typically we can get something scheduled within 24 hours for people. So so we can get it done very quickly. So this is the difference between going out to waiting to attend some university on a weekend 3 months from now. You can get started on this top speed if that's what you need to do.
Right on, and everything you would want to know about how to do that, again, as Bob mentioned, just go to the Wiley Manager website at wileymanager.com.
Yep.
Click through our Marketplace tab.
Yep.
And within there, it's pretty self-explanatory to help you click through the registration process.
Yep, it's not a problem at all. And again, I think probably if you've seen all the stuff we're trying to cover off in this, you'll see why we spread it out and we've modularized this thing, because there's a lot we're trying to bite off here. So.
Yeah, if for those of you who listen to the Wiley Manager podcast, it's not dissimilar to some of the stuff that we've provided through those venues. It is a bit more structured with perhaps a few more focused tools that are made available to you, so you can sort of walk through this in a more systematic and programmatic kind of a way.
You betcha. All right.
Anything else there for today then, Bob?
No, we'll see you out there.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Talk to you soon.